Today, I'll be sharing insights and testimonies about our one major focus on this channel, and that is thoroughly beating diabetes. We'll consider your pancreas and why you don't have to be afraid to use it and put it to work, but you definitely do not want to abuse it. And we'll be hearing a testimony of a man who used to wake up in the morning and see his fasting glucose at around 250. But these days he sees it in the 70's and 80's. How in the world did he do that? Considering the tremendous stress our nation is suffering after the murder of George Floyd, I felt I could not keep silent. I posted one of my video devotionals on my other channel that I call my ministry channel, which addresses the issue of George Floyd and racism from a biblical view. I'll leave a link in the description which will take you to this devotional talk on racism, its cause and cure. Now here's a question I get a lot about I did a video some time ago. I think it was maybe a year ago. I don't remember exactly when. It's been a while. On a fasting day I did, where I fasted throughout the day. I had coffee a couple of times, black coffee, fasted. And then at 9:30, I ate. And, people seem to appreciate the video. It's had quite a few views, but a lot of people are perplexed about why I ate. And they wonder, and this person says, just curious why you would wait until 9:30 to eat after your day of fasting. Doesn't eating so late affect your blood sugar? If you'd started eating earlier in the evening, would it work better? Well, it doesn't seem to affect my blood sugar, and here's the reason why. When I fast like that particular day, and I do different kinds of fasts, but if I do it that way, where I don't eat a thing, don't even have the bulletproof coffee, it's just black coffee, morning, evening, and then I eat around 9:30. When I do eat at 9:30, it's almost always a very low carb, and lately it's been almost a zero carb meal. And that means, for me, typically it's a slice of ham and 2 eggs and maybe a bit of tea, probably herbal because I don't like to drink caffeine that late at night. So a slice of ham, and it's not sweetened ham, and 2 eggs, it's virtually zero carbs. Now, I've tested myself to see how it works after that kind of a meal, and there's very little difference between what I had as a glucose before the meal and what I wake up with the next morning. I have even had times where I woke up the morning after, having fasted throughout much of the day, had a late meal of ham and eggs and a bit of tea, and the next morning, I was in the 70's, which is about where I was the night before. A lot of people, when they fast, their blood sugar goes high. And as far as I understand it, that's a liver problem, and your liver is dumping out fat and converting it back to sugar and sending it on into your blood, which is a good thing, really. You're losing some of your liver fat, and your body's living off that liver fat. So it's not really a bad thing, but it frustrates people because they're saying, I'm fasting, I should have really low blood sugar, and instead it's like 150. What in the world is going on? That doesn't happen with me. Typically what happens is I'll wake up somewhat low, maybe 85 to 95, and I'll rise for a while for maybe 3 hours, till around 11:30, noon, and then it'll start going down gradually. And oftentimes, by the time I'm at 9:30, where I may eat that ham and eggs, it's in the upper 70's or low to mid 80's. So, and it doesn't affect my blood sugar. Again, I'm a pragmatist. I go with what works. I'd go with what my blood sugar meter tells me. If my blood sugar meter tells me I can eat ham and eggs at 9:30 and still wake up with excellent blood sugar, then I'm good. There are two kinds of people when it comes to most issues of life. There are the ideologues and the pragmatists. The ideologue goes with the party line. Whatever, a certain group of people say, if you're a Democrat, you follow all the Democratic ideas and concepts. If you're a Republican, you follow the Republican things. And, if you're a vegan, you follow the standard vegan practices and the standard vegan doctrines, and you quote the same vegan quotes that everybody else does. And if you're a carnivore, you follow the carnivores. I'm just a pragmatist when it comes to diabetes. Now, when it comes to spiritual matters, I follow the Bible. But when it comes to diabetes, the Bible doesn't say much about diabetes. So I just am pragmatic. I just listen to my blood sugar meter, and it works for me. So I know there's a lot of guys in the keto movement that would say, you should never, you big idiot, you should never, never, never eat at 9:30. And normally I wouldn't. But I find on these kind of days that I can get by with it. Why would I even want to? Well, it gives me strength because I never eat when I first wake up in the morning. I'm usually working and reading the Bible and doing some stuff for a couple of hours. I may wake up at 6:15. I may not eat till 9. And I just don't feel as strong and as capable when I wake up having fasted the whole day before normally. So, that's how it works for me. But I'm not saying you do it. You figure out what works for you. Anyway, I do get that question a lot. How can you possibly eat at 9:30? Well, I don't normally, for sure. And I tell people not to. But in this one case, if I'm doing it that way, I may break my own rule. Okay, this person says, and this is a guy who sent me an email, actually, rather than a comment under one of the videos. He says, I live in the UK. I'd like to thank you for all your great work. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in February 2019. I lost some of my vision. I had retinal vein occlusion. My doctor failed to tell me, I guess, that he was diabetic. I moved home in January this year, and in February 2020, my new doctor informed me I had diabetes. So February of this year, he officially got the word that he had diabetes, and he sent me away with a box of metformin. The guy says, I knew absolutely nothing about diabetes. I had no family history at all. Because of COVID-19, I've received no professional advice or information. So I guess it's hard there in the UK, as it is in the US these days during COVID-19 crisis, to just see a doctor over ordinary things. They're so wrapped up with COVID-19 cases, as I suppose they should be, that they just don't make a lot of time for ordinary things. But diabetes, serious diabetes, is as much a killer as COVID-19. And in fact, a lot of the people that are dying with the coronavirus they are diabetics. So that's a whole nother issue. Anyway, this person says he couldn't get a doctor's appointment. He said, everything I researched from Dr. Jason Fung, Dr. Sten Ekberg, and of course yourself, he says, I've lowered my blood glucose from 250 to being in the 70's and 80's. My A1C has been constant now for 2 weeks at 4.6. Wow, wow, wow. This guy was at 250, which is outrageous. I'll never forget the first time I tested myself. I was starting to get a little idea of what's normal. So I knew that, around 100, 120 might be normal, depending on if you've been fasting or not. But I was wondering, what will I get? Is it going to be 200? If I'd gotten a 250, I would have been so depressed. Because I knew that was really high. But he was at 250, and yet, within just a few weeks, he's gotten it down to the 70's and 80's. Or maybe it's a couple of months. But anyway, he says, my A1C has been constant for 2 weeks at 4.6. I couldn't have achieved this without your help. And, of course, Mike's. And when we say Mike, we're talking about a blood sugar meter. I've kind of personified him as Mike the meter. Just to encourage people to use Mike. The NHS, I had to look that up, that's National Health Service in the UK, they're still recommending on their website to eat low fat and high carb. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Well, it's just awesome to see report after report after report of victory from people all over the world. As I love to say, this victory is a universal victory. This way to beat diabetes works in every culture, in every language. Now, granted, there are some cultures that are so highly bread focused in their diet that it's a bigger challenge for others. America, for example, has a lot of different diets, and so you're not looked upon as too much of a freak these days if you don't eat quite the way others do. Back in my parents' day, you would have been looked at as much more of a freak to eat a low-carb, high-fat diet. And in fact, when my mom had her problem with diabetes, she was told, cut the fat, and not hardly said anything about the carbs. And I can remember her to this day sitting at the breakfast table eating her cereal. Shredded wheat, I think, was one of her favorites. And, in her mind, that was a healthy diet. That was a healthy thing for a diabetic to eat. It wasn't, she wasn't eating Trix cereal. She wasn't eating Fruit Loops. It was shredded wheat. What could be healthier than that? Well, the truth is that is a nightmare for diabetics. You might as well be eating Cocoa Puffs as shredded wheat, and I don't know if they even still make it. I don't look at cereal these days much. But she was doing what she knew to do, and all the doctors were saying it, all the health experts were saying it, and according to this guy, they're still saying it. The NHS, National Health Service in the UK, is still saying high carb, low fat, and you'll be just fine. No, you won't. You'll kill yourself doing it that way. So good for you. Again, the shortest path from one point to another is a straight line. You want to get that blood sugar down in a hurry, you slash those carbs, and you'll see it happen. And here we have a wonderful report from a type 1 viewer. He says, I don't feel like I'm type 1 diabetic anymore. I feel 20 years younger. Wow. I lost over 25 pounds from 198 to 171. I lost over 4 inches on my waist. I don't get dehydrated anymore. My A1C is consistently 5.8, down from 7.5, just outside of normal, technically labeled pre-diabetes. What did I change? The way I eat. Let me underscore that and repeat it. What did I change? The way I eat. It's amazing what happens when you change the way what you eat. When instead of taking your fork into that big helping of mashed potatoes and gravy and sticking that in your mouth, you put it into a salad and put that in your mouth. Or you eat a steak and you put that in your mouth. It's amazing the difference of the foods you put in your mouth and the numbers you get for your A1C and your fasting glucose. He said, it is exciting to witness others, both type 1 and type 2s, experiencing similarly positive results. So he's happy to see us with these interviews that we do on Beat Diabetes. He says, if I can break through my current personal floor of 5.8, it would be amazing. However, the health improvements of normal blood pressure, and that's a side benefit, normal blood pressure, better sleep, reversal of eye damage, etc., are the most important. Well, I just love it. And I love it that type 1s are finding some help. We're not basically a type 1 channel, and I'm sure you can probably do better with some of the other YouTube channels for type 1, but I think you can learn a few things from us. And I've always been a Dr. Richard Bernstein fan, and he is a type 1, and most of his stuff is really aimed more toward type 1s. I just love the guy. So they're being helped. And, in a sense, there's not all that much difference. And I know some of you are going to scream and say, there's a huge difference between type 1 and type 2. Yeah, I know. In one sense, there is. But here's the sense that I'm talking about. For the type 1, you cut your carbs way low, and you take small amounts of insulin. For the type 2, you cut your carbs way low, and your pancreas produces much less, smaller amounts of insulin. And that's exactly what Dr. Bernstein, who's the doctor to the type 1s and is a type 1 himself, says. Cut those carbs way down. You don't have to take much insulin. You'll be better for it. You can control how much insulin you take. You can be much more under control. You'll stop having all the hypos. You'll feel better. You'll be stronger. And to prove it, he's lived, since he was 12 years old with type 1 diabetes. He's now about 85 and going strong and still working as a doctor. What an incredible testimony. So whether you're type 1 or type 2, the answer is still cut your carbs way down. Type 1, you're going to take some insulin, but you don't have to take so much. Type 2, in most cases, your pancreas can handle it. And most type 2s, their pancreas is still working pretty well and can work even better as you cut those carbs down. It's not that it's wrong to use your pancreas, put your pancreas to work. Some people say, well, if low carb is good, then zero carb is better, or if I could get to negative carbs, that would be better still. I don't know how you do that. But there's no sin in letting your pancreas handle a few carbs. But the sin is abusing it constantly. It's like a little exercise can be a really good thing. But if you go, marching on a 50-mile hike as fast as you can in a snowstorm and a blizzard where it's about 0 degrees, you're abusing your body and you're killing yourself. That's not exercise, that's killing yourself. So to have a salad and to have, some low-carb veggies and maybe once in a while an occasional fruit, not very often, to do that, nothing wrong with it. But to just jam your body full of carbs and bagels and donuts and Twinkies and baked potatoes and rice and more potatoes and more Twinkies, it's just suicide. It's just so wrong. So don't be afraid to let your pancreas do its job. Your pancreas was made well by God, and it should last you 100 years easy if you don't abuse it. But don't treat it like an enemy. Treat it like a friend. And of course, the goal is always going to be the same: a healthy life, a long life, a happy life, without the distraction of being constantly sick, constantly weak, constantly going to the doctor, constantly going to the hospital. Who wants that? And I saw that happen with my mom over the last 10 or 12 years of her life. Just going, she had a hospital appointment or a surgery almost every year for the last 10 years of her life. Just constant bad health. Very low quality of life those last 10 years. Now, she was a trooper. And she kept mostly a positive attitude. Yeah, she did break down and cry a few times when she lost her legs. But for the most part, she kept a pretty good attitude, and I give her credit. And like I said before, she was doing, what the doctors told her to do, so I can't really fault her. That's just what everybody was saying. Don't worry about the carbs, but by all means cut the fat. And eventually it killed her. Okay, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed this. Remember that sometimes YouTube has the strange and bizarre practice of just unsubscribing you without asking your permission. So you need to check and see if you're still subscribed and you're still, hooked up with the notifications, because I have a feeling a lot of our people have been unsubscribed for whatever reasons. I don't know. And I heard of another guy I was watching saying, his girlfriend and his mom had been unsubscribed multiple times. I don't know why, but that does happen. So check and see if you're still subscribed. God bless. See you again soon.